everyone focuses on the bright, beautiful colors, the vegetables, the fruits of the blue zones, right? Because there's nice documentaries made on it, and who doesn't like beautiful, pristine blue water and this and that and surfing and whatnot? It's great. But the fact of the matter is that 3 out of the 7 countries that have the longest life expectancy are from this region that is very unassuming. It's not the sexiest looking blue zone stuff. We're talking about countries that are frigid and freezing and not where we would typically want to be, right? We're gonna break it down. It's very interesting stuff. I'm talking about the Nordic regions, like up northern Europe where it's cold and freezing, and we're gonna understand why, because once you learn why these regions live so long, it's gonna make a lot of sense. And the best news is you don't need to wipe out your entire fridge and pantry because it's pretty easy to integrate certain things. After today's video, I put a link down below for literally the best tasting whey protein powder that you could probably have. When it comes down to longevity, there is no denying that muscle mass and protein intake are very important. I've talked to Peter Attia about this. I've talked to multiple experts. Protein is key, but also it's good for building muscle. But the only problem is protein powder tastes like garbage. Bowmar Nutrition has the best tasting allulose and stevia sweetened protein powders. They've recently changed almost all their flavors and formulas to no longer have sucralose or anything like that, because I met up with Josh, who's the owner, and I was like, hey man, like I love your stuff, but like I'm not gonna promote it with this, like I can't talk about it. So they changed their flavors. So they've got like strawberry milkshake, banana milkshake, they've got the most amazing tasting vanilla, they've got cookies and cream. I am telling you, you will have an easy time getting your protein intake in when your protein shakes taste like literal McDonald's milkshakes. Like they taste so dang good. So that link is down below and saves you some cashola, saves you 15% off using that link in the top line of the description underneath this video. So it's funny because I kind of live a little bit of a pseudo Viking lifestyle anyway. Like I live like a Nordic person. I rock out in my sauna listening to Tupac. I go and I do Viking things and I lift heavy weights, but I never realized that the Vikings lived for a long time. I didn't realize that they don't literally live for a long time, but the Nordic regions have a lot of interesting stuff. So 3 of the top 7 countries with the longest life expectancy are like Sweden, Finland, Denmark, these Nordic countries. And it's interesting because we don't associate vibrant fruits and vegetables with these countries. We associate more like dark kind of meat and this and that. What's interesting is if you take a look at the study that was published in BMC Public Health, it took a look at 83,000 people. And it followed them around for a long time through 8,500 deaths of some of those people. And they found that the best association with living longer was with eating 200 grams of Nordic fruits and vegetables per day, but also with eating lean protein, lean dairy, and eating fair amounts of fatty fish. Literally down to the Nordic fruits and vegetables, this is exactly like the kind of diet that people in those Nordic regions would eat. And we're gonna expand on this more and more. And I'm not making a crazy link here by saying, oh, this study talks about Nordic vegetables, so the Nordic, no, literally the Nordic regions make up 3 out of 7 of the countries with the best life expectancy. So let's investigate it more. The vegetables that are typically consumed in these regions are root vegetables. And I have said in many videos that these are the healthiest things you can eat anyway. Like if you're gonna have carbohydrates, you're best off eating sweet potatoes or turnips or parsnips or beets because the fiber content, the low glycemic content, so not a lot of sugar in them, they don't spike your glucose, they're tremendous for the metabolism, but they're also very rich in nutrients. And things like beets, like you're getting a huge amount of nitric oxide, so tremendous for the cardiovascular system. Like these Nordic regions have like some of the lowest risk of cardiovascular disease in the world. And also, yeah, sure, if you like to sauna, these regions are big into saunas, which are also tremendous for cardiovascular risk. So as far as a lifestyle is concerned, they're doing the right things. They're very active, their diet is tremendous, they're sitting in saunas. They are very, 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 very similar to a Mediterranean diet, just without the fluff, right? You don't go to Sweden to have spaghetti, okay? You go to Sweden to do things that Swedes do, right? But they have a lot of the Mediterranean diet influence without the carbohydrates, without the pasta. It's a lower carbohydrate count. So you think, oh my gosh, this is Mediterranean, this is like the great kind of Mediterranean. The carbohydrates they do consume, and I'm sure there's a lot of refined and processed stuff that's everywhere, but they're staples. Much more barley and rye and oat based than say like rice and wheat. So we've got lower glycemic carbohydrates even in their grains. And these are grains that have a high beta-glucan count. Oats and barley are very high beta-glucans, which are arguably one of the most powerful fibers that is out there. It's a very potent fiber that is tremendous as sort of feeding the gut microbiome. So with that, we've got our carb sources already being nutritious and being high in fiber and being low glycemic. But then the meats that they're consuming, they're one of the highest consumption of game meats in the world. So they eat a lot of meats that are coming out of the dense forest that's in Northern Europe. I remember watching this documentary on Romania one time and being flabbergasted by like how beautiful and how dense the forests were in Romania. I never realized that. I thought Romania was just gonna be like this cold gray country with like kind of weird urban areas. I never realized. The point is like these Nordic regions, there is a lot of wild game. And wild game is gonna be low antibiotic. It's gonna be higher essential fatty acids, higher amino acids, higher protein content, and overall, just a leaner meat with a better omega-3 to omega-6 profile. If you look again at the large-scale data, some of the lowest cardiovascular disease, some of the lowest levels of inflammation, low levels of high sensitivity CRP in the Nordic regions. So how do we take this and apply it into our diet today? It's really simple. Okay, 30 to 35% of the diet being protein. And a good chunk of that coming from like fish if you can, but if you can't get it from fish, try to get at least some, I don't know, some lean meat. There's even companies, no sponsorship here at all. There's a company called Force of Nature, for example, like you can get in a lot of grocery stores that has like the liver and has all that ground into it. So that's great. You can get like ground beef that has ground liver and ground spleen. And so it's almost like you're eating and getting the nutrient profile of that. But leaning into the sweet potatoes, leaning into the turnips, leaning into the beets, the onions, the leeks, anything that grows kind of underground. If you're gonna have grains, lean into the barley, lean into the rye. If you don't do gluten, go for something like buckwheat, which is a similar profile, but without the gluten. Buckwheat is huge, so if you're gonna bake with it, you can make porridge with it, all kinds of things. Okay, lifestyle-wise, sauna usage whenever you can, low intensity cardio, just lots of walking and lots of moving around. Also resistance training, which has become more popular in the Nordic regions as well. These things are simple, but we can also apply things we know from the other regions too, right? Like the Mediterranean regions eat a lot more in the way of fruits, and they seem to have a great life expectancy. But the fruits that the Nordic regions eat are much more berry related. We're looking at things like blueberries and blackberries and raspberries. Hey, what do you know? Those are also very low glycemic. When you get into the other regions, the blue zones, like where it's more tropical, then you've got higher sugar fruits, which are great, but I would imagine that those regions are more active because of the climate, right? So they can offset the tropical fruits that might be higher sugar. So the Nordic regions, more berries. It's literally the diet that I would recommend, that I've been recommending without ever realizing that it's really specific to the Nordic regions so much. So anyhow, as always, keep it locked in here on my channel. I'll see you tomorrow.